We're going to watch a video with Dr. Peter Boghossian doing street epistemology, which has become known within the atheistic community, especially on YouTube. It's like a counter-evangelism sort of thing. So it is atheists speaking to people about their faith and convincing them otherwise. So I'm going to bring this in, and then we're going to look at this video. We'll stop it at a certain locations, and I'll just give you my commentary on it. I wish I was a part of this conversation, so that's partly maybe why we're doing this. But here we go. Really smart dudes that he has on there. So Michael Schellenberger and Michael Shermer. You can look up at those names, and you'll see what those men have accomplished in their lives.
And a pragmatist, so I think Christianity works better. Christianity has better outcomes
than
the alternatives.
All of them?
No, most of them. I think that there's a small number of people that can handle atheism, and I know all of you. And I'm friends with all of them.
Okay, here we are. Where are we, sir?
We are in Santa Barbara at the Hilton.
And what is your name?
Michael Shermer.
And what is your name, sir?
Michael Schellenberger.
Wow, so
That's so similar.
Wow. Two Michaels and two very good friends of mine. So that's amazing how that works out. And we're going to do a little...
You said I was your best friend, not...
Best friend? Oh, no, I got busted already. So we're going to do a little spectrum street epistemology. Okay. And we're going to start off with the claim. Christianity is a better bulwark against woke than humanism.
So easy.
Move. Wow. Wow, really? Okay, grab the board. Okay. Grab the board. Wow, right out of the gate. Okay, write down your best reason for believing that Christianity is a bulwark, a better bulwark. Yeah. So don't show him, Michael, don't show him. Take a guess at what his best reason for believing that is.
Because Christians have a sense of right and wrong that is absolute and objective, they believe. And therefore, wokeness, which is based on more moral relativism, doesn't work.
Wow, that is so interesting.
Is that don't tell him the reason, but
Okay.
Is that correct?
No.
Is his reason better or worse than the one you have written here?
Worse. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. We're all
I
friends
love you,
here.
but no.
We're all friends here. Okay, so don't show him. Don't show him. I want you to guess what his reason is that he wrote down.
Because only a secular alternative to wokeism can undermine wokeism.
Is that correct?
Say it again, only a secular?
Because only a secular, not a religious alternative can undermine and replace wokeism.
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of.
Kind
what I
of.
have to,
Don't.
Yeah, I won't say it. Say
So
yeah.
it's kind of.
It's kind of flipped about what Christianity is not doing as opposed to what secularism is doing, which I think is. I like what he said better than what I wrote.
You like his answer better than what you have.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm going to give you another opportunity to guess what he has on the board. Like,
Well,
why would someone believe that?
I will come up with sort of a political Christianity.
Okay.
That is to say, it's organized enough to push back against the woke movement, to actually boots on the ground, do something about it.
Is what he said correct?
No.
Okay, so here's maybe in this conversation, something is apparent to me that might not be apparent to other people as a Christian. And I think it has to do with the view of Christians and serious Christian scholarship that Michael Shermer has. And Michael Shermer has debated like a lot of folks in the Christian apologetics world. But I'm not very sure how much Michael Shermer has spent reading serious Christian scholarship. And there's something when it comes to understanding a worldview and their defenses and what they bring to the table, other than like pop culture kind of what people say on the go when it comes to Christianity. And I think these actually make sense. Michael Schellenberger, the Christian guy, okay? Now he's a Christian of a certain sort, and he'll define it and explain it. Is a really well thought out individual. And both of the guesses that Michael Shermer came out as to his answers are pretty bad. He's like, that's not what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying. Okay? And maybe that is at least obvious to me. Like, if atheists are really going to criticize Christianity as a worldview, not claims Christians make, not the resurrection, like not specific claims, and I'm talking about like fundamental claims, but Christianity as a worldview, as a system of justification, as to why we ought to do the things we do and the way we live, and why we actually desire certain things of society and other people, and why we think they should live that way as well. Why we think people have rights, and so on and so forth, right? I don't see many atheists that actually engage in that top level Christian scholarship without just kind of like name calling and stuff like that. And that's sort of sad.
Okay, can you please share your answer with him?
Sure.
What is it?
Should I read it?
Yeah.
Because the decline of Christianity resulted in the nihilism that led to wokeism.
What do you?
Pretty good, actually. Yes, that's a testable hypothesis.
That is a very good point. Okay, so he's kind of arguing from a negative. It's very interesting the way he went about it. Now he deals with culture and various things, Schellenberger, and he's saying the decline of Christianity. So the more we've seen Christianity decline in society as a generally held worldview. That doesn't mean everybody's been a Christian, but that means a lot of people in our society have believed claims of Christianity, like generally been Christian. And as that has decreased, at least in our society, wokeism has increased. And he's going to throw some facts around that I think are very, very interesting.
Okay, so before we make that claim, I'm going to grab this from you. Sure. Can you please show him your answer?
Yeah, mine is Christianity. I didn't write it very well. Christianity is not universal ethics to include all people, and what I really meant to say, it's too divisive. It's too judgmental.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go over that one in a second. I'm going to grab this.
So he's saying Christianity can't really battle wokeism because it's not inclusive enough. Okay.
The decline of Christianity resulted in the nihilism that led to wokeism. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
Yep. I like what happens here.
Okay, so if you slightly disagree with that, is that consistent with the position of you being?
I may even go one more.
Okay.
Because I happen to be a moral realist. I think
this is brilliant. This part of the conversation is really, really cool because things come out of people's mouths that you don't expect to come out of.
There is right and wrong. I think there's objective reality, and I think the woke movement is simply wrong about what they think is true. And so at least the Christians have a sense of right and wrong. I don't think grounding it in supernatural beliefs is the right way. Secular humanism, Spinoza and Kant and so on, that's the way to ground it. But at least we have that common ground. There is a right and wrong. There is a reality. And the wokesters don't know what that is.
Do you agree with his analysis?
No.
Okay. What reason is he missing?
I think that morality is subjective.
What?
Yeah, of course.
I'm so surprised to hear you say that.
You're surprised?
I'm surprised to hear him say that.
Why?
Because most Christians, most religious people, this is their core argument, that without God, there's no objective basis of morality. Then it's subjective.
Yeah. And Michael is a Christian. Well, I should be. What am I asking you for? Michael, you're a Christian.
Existentialist.
You're a Christian existentialist. Okay.
Or existentialist Christian.
Okay, so, and you believe morality...
And a pragmatist, so I think Christianity works better. Christianity is...
So I'm not a big fan of pragmatism, I should say. Just because something works better doesn't mean we should do it or it's okay. Because I believe there's a higher standard of morality. I mean, pragmatically, you can argue a number of things that might work better. Like, it could be the case that if I functioned like a dictator when it came to my children, that their room would always be clean, right? But that wouldn't necessarily mean that is for the good of my family or my children. So the end result, having their room always clean, pragmatically with me functioning like a dictator, would make sense for me to accomplish the goals that I have to accomplish. But I wouldn't say it'd be good for folks.
Better outcomes
than
the alternatives.
All of them?
No, most of them. I think that there's a small number of people that can handle atheism, and I know all of you. And I'm friends with all of them.
Yeah.
But no, I think that, and like Sufism, Reform Judaism. There's certainly some kinds of Buddhism that are able to sort of embrace the tragedy and suffering of life, but also be redemptive and grateful and transcendent and provide people with the purpose and meaning that they need, so that they can behave in moral ways in the world. But I also think that my understanding of what's moral and not moral is a consequence of some inner subjective and subjective views. I don't think that you can. I agree with Hume. You can't derive an ought from an is.
Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, Mr. Hume, tear down this wall. Come on, we can derive oughts from the way things are. That people would rather be satiated than starving. They'd rather be free than enslaved. They'd rather be healthy rather than diseased. We know it leads to human flourishing. You can objectively measure it. And then you can see which systems lead to more human flourishing. Democracy versus autocracy, free markets versus controlled markets and economies, and so on.
Do you have a comment?
We're getting to the next session already, but we're dealing with the reality that you have Democrats.
So this is a good point, because I think, Michael, and I've seen this with a lot of atheists, that they generally have a optimistic view of how the future will be and how society will reorder itself, and things are going to be generally good, and people will love freedom and pursue after it and all that stuff. I just don't think that's the case. Mostly because I have a certain view of humanity, and that's influenced by my Christian theology. But also the reality of history is that. I think he's speaking way too broadly here, Michael Shermer is. And a number of these thoughts are going to get thrown around. Like Schellenberger is going to give some stats here, and I think they're terrifying. They're really, really scary, guys.
The United States went from 40% to 70% in support of government censorship of online speech between 2018 and 2023.
So 2018 to 2023, Democrats, in regards to censorship, went from 40% to 70%. They're for it. And obviously, you got Trump in between this, and that could be the reason. That's insane.
What led Democrats to reject freedom? Was it because, I think it was because the subjective argument for freedom was not properly made, and they saw no need for free speech, and that for us to make the case for free speech, we have to explain to people. I think this is where I come into the last half. You have to make the case for freedom of speech. It's not obvious to people. It seemed obvious, but it no longer seemed obvious to people after the Trump election, particularly why free speech was an absolute value and an inalienable right. And we had to, I think, go through a moment where we saw the potential of tyranny from censorship for us to re-embrace free speech.
Because each generation has to relearn it. It's not in the DNA.
I think it's actually quite the opposite. I think it's an evolved. I think it requires I think free speech requires slow thinking. It requires rationality. It requires discourse. It requires dialogue. But that the intuitive, the deeper reptilian parts of ourselves is.
I have no idea what he means by reptilian. I mean, I could guess, like our animal nature.
Tyrannical and tribal. And we have to experience the consequences of that tyrannical and reptilian brain for us to appreciate freedom and free speech.
Do you have a comment on that, or we do?
I do, and if it's just the pragmatist stuff, I will move one more over here.
Wow,
this is hilarious.
Wow.
Free speech, because I'm a free speech almost absolute.
I'm just come over here just to give you a hug. I'm just
because at least
here's a sign of good faith. I still strongly agree, but
okay.
I want to be closer to
but I will remind the audience, that it wasn't that long ago, a few decades, when the Christians and conservatives were censoring speech.
So, okay, this is an interesting point he brings up. So it wasn't, that long ago where Christians were censoring speech. Then he's going to make a comment, and I want to talk about that a little bit.
Songs, expressions, and so on. Madonna's videos were immoral, and so on. So
okay, so songs, expressions, and then he mentions Madonna's videos and stuff like that. We are at a point in history, and I guess maybe history works like this always, because hindsight is 20/20. Where we can look back and say, well, wait, look, were we right or wrong? Like, look at these people. So I will use my life as an example. When I was in my teens, I was a humongous fan of Eminem. I actually wrote I wrote a research paper when I was in high school defending Eminem against accusations that were brought up against him in regards to his music is corrupting the youth and stuff like that. Almost all the stuff I said in that paper I would disagree with now. Now, I was, 17 years old when I wrote that. But we can look back at people like Madonna and say, do we want our children to grow up to be Madonna? Do we, how has this music, how has these things that were culturally a part of the conversation, your Marilyn Mansons, right? Where Christians were, these would have been individuals where Christians would have been saying, hey, we shouldn't be promoting these people. You know, I don't know what censorships of that stuff would have looked like. But like, we should not as a culture be promoting these people. They're bad. They're bad for our children. We don't want our children to be replicating. We don't want kids in society to be replicating. We don't want 7 and 8 year olds to grow up replicating Nicki Minaj. Now, should we censor them? Now, that's going to get into a conversation, I think, about freedom generally. I think the market generally, what consumers like. I think, generally speaking, people in culture are going to consume things that is sort of made for them. So it's like this vicious circle that gets created, right? The culture reflects its own people, produces things that its own people desire. Dostoevsky has a comment about that, where the arts at one point start reflecting the culture, and then I think shape the culture, if I'm not mistaken, something around those lines, right? So maybe Christians weren't that wrong about essentially warning us against all these people, like the conservative folks. Look where we've come. Look kind of what these people have done, I would say the kind of damage they've done to our society. I think that's a legitimate point, and I get what Michael Shermer is saying. It's like, hey, conservatives were for the censoring of these things. But they were for the censoring of these things because of moral, ethical sort of reasons. These people were doing sacrilegious stuff. And so therefore, people were against it. Where I think what the woke are against, and you could say they have their own moral reasons, but it's kind of weird because they tend to be moral relativists, is more whatever is offending them should be shut down. And if they're empowered, they're going to shut it down. They're a lot more dangerous than the conservative, let's say, fundamentalist Christians who were for censoring certain things for like ethical reasons or whatever. That is something that should be brought up in this conversation. It's not. And again, if I was there, I would have said, hey, let's kind of hang on here and have this conversation kind of a bit more seriously.
Well, the roles have flipped a little bit, so common cause, okay, good.
Yep.
But that idea that of free speech is kind of a fundamental right that grounds all other rights, that's kind of a universal idea that should apply everywhere to all people. And, secular humanism, that's what we champion, is universal principles that apply to everybody, doesn't matter who you are. So
why?
To the extent that Christians...
Again, the question here always why?
...are pulling in that direction, that's good. But they didn't used to be that way.
That's right.
Because of our reptilian brain, just kind of this tribalism, that's, that leads you to want to censor people.
I think there's a naivety here in regards to like people embracing this stuff. Like you're assuming, Christians might be embracing a number of these things because it works maybe with Christianity, right? So I would say like Christians, some Christians throughout history embraced Platonism, Platonic thought, some Aristotelian thought, and that worked together, and so therefore Christians embrace those things, and I think it's done good and all that stuff. And maybe humanism of a certain sort that he's talking about, Christians can embrace. Can you do that with other worldviews? Can you do that with Islam? Remember, like half the world is Muslim. Whether they even allow for that. That's the maybe what I would call American naivety. Whether these individuals would be like the Christians that you're used to, who are going to be like, cool, we're good with that one. Or not.
I say those were bad Christians.
Those are bad Christians.
Because remember, the most important thing that Jesus says is, you have heard it said that you should love your friends and hate your enemies. I say unto you that you should love your enemies. That is, for me, the most important passage. That's the most important thing Jesus said, and it's the most important phrase in all of Christianity. And so for people to suggest that we should hate enemies is a deeply unchristian.
Yeah, I don't know where this came from. Like, I don't know any Christians, and I'm sure there's out there, but Christianity wouldn't tell us to hate Madonna or Marilyn Manson and all these. Like, we'd want these people to repent. We want them to come to know Jesus. I could disagree with any one of the people watching this or any one of the people making that stuff that I think are bad for society. I wouldn't have hate towards them. And if people are acting in those ways, amen to what Michael Schellenberger is saying, that's bad Christianity. But to say it's wrong and bad for society doesn't mean we hate them. To say that we shouldn't have this around our kids, and that should be a conversation we're having as a society, is not hating them. That we need to clarify that.
Value, and so they're betraying their Christianity in spirit, if not in name.
Just as an aside, that's in Plato's Republic when he talks about beating a horse makes it worse. So it's like, so it's that precedes Christianity. So there is in the Republic. I want to do another claim.
Jesus is plagiarizing, is what you're saying?
Well,
Jesus a plagiarist?
I wouldn't say plagiarist, but I think the Sermon on the Mount is.
But let me address one more thing. In the context of this kind of pragmatic theory of truth, Ian Hersey is now famous.
Yes.
Why I am now a Christian instead of an atheist is because basically the woke people are ruining everything. At least the Christians can do something about this. Come on. And so Andrew Sullivan, who is a Catholic and Christian, he kind of upbraided her as like, you should believe because it's true, not because it has practical political.
That's the question that I have now.
Yeah.
Okay, so amen to that. I am not a fan of people, quote unquote, becoming Christians or taking Christianity on because it works. We ought to believe in Christianity because Christianity is true. And I think Michael Shermer is good with that. Like, I would agree with Michael Shermer on this. So we'll see what the next claim is.
It is reasonable to believe in Christianity solely because of the benefits. Move.
So this is interesting, right? So the person that I would disagree with most, it seems like, in this conversation would be Michael Shermer. But I would actually stand, strongly disagree to this claim. I would believe that which is true. Look, even if what is true is just like chaotic nihilism or something like that, if it's true, believe that.
I'm happy where I am.
Okay, why do you?
Well, because my commitment to truth is that it should be actually true.
Amen.
That is, reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. If you stop believing in Christianity, then you're going to abandon the other things that you embrace. So you should embrace those other principles by themselves, regardless of the Christian affiliation, because they're true in some objective, measurable way. So it's a step. At least they're moving in the right direction, but we could do better than that.
There's not enough epistemic humility in that, because what we thought was true throughout human history, as you know, we now view as false. And so you must, not everything, but we don't know what gravity is. We don't know how it works. We don't understand the quantum realm. We don't really understand the beginning of the universe. We tell a story about it that almost certainly will be a different story in 100 or 200 years. So I think you have to allow more epistemic humility, again, just in a very basic Humean form of our ability to apprehend reality. The human mind is not a mirror of nature.
That's a good point.
Yes, epistemic humility, intellectual humility. That's good. That's another core secular humanist principle.
Sufficient to cause you to move to neutral, or no?
No, because I think we could do.
I don't know how he's.
We used to believe this, now we don't. Well,
he threw that in there. That it's like a humanist principle to have epistemic humility. I mean, you can find all sorts of conversations about humility in ancient religious, just ancient writing. Right? Specifically religious writing. So I wouldn't like debate the point. It was a side comment he made, but it's a virtuous thing, and one ought to have it: intellectual honesty or epistemic humility.
How likely is it that slavery will return to
There's the moral arc.
Yeah, there's a moral arc. I mean,
this is an interesting point he makes, and I disagree with it, because he's like, how likely is it that slavery will return? Before anything, slavery exists today. There is slavery in the world. It's changed forms, but there's slavery in the world. All different forms of slavery in the world. If we're not careful, all that stuff will come back. How likely is it? I don't know. I can't give you a probabilistic sort of argument for it, but it could return real quick. Let us not be naive as to how bad things can get.
Are there any countries that are going to repeal the right for women to vote?
Yes.
Not likely.
There are worldviews that if they take over, they will repeal the right of women to vote and be involved or drive, or they're going to mention a couple of these countries. Yes, there are. Just give them the power and watch it happen. Give them the power and watch the masses not do anything about it.
Once you get that step, it's not likely to go back.
Iran.
Yeah, I mean, of
You
course,
said
there's gonna
Iran.
be, 2 or 3, but
Iran, yeah.
in 1919, there was only one country on earth that had allowed women to vote, and then there was this huge burst in the 20s, and now all women can vote in all countries except one, Saudi Arabia, I guess, and yeah, so that's not going to return. There's a reason that happened. It's not random. It's not cultural relativism. Oh, this century we allowed women to vote, and the next century maybe they won't be allowed to vote. That's not going to happen, because it's a true human value that people should be treated equally, including men and women.
New claim. In the United States, the right is a threat to liberal democracy.
Depends on which right. Are you counting?
Yeah.
Which right? That's a good point.
MAGA right, or let's say
Yeah.
John McCain kind of right? Because John McCain kind of right. No, it's good for democracy.
Broadly the right.
Yeah, I'm going to go a threat. Yeah, I'll go over slightly agree. Depends who it is.
Yeah.
It depends who it is.
I mean, it's like this could be one of these things where just for this decade or 20 years, there's this little blip, and then we return to the way conservatives used to be. Say 1980s, 1990s conservative, Bob Dole conservative.
Right,
that's completely different than what we have now. So I can't tell if this is a trend, this is the direction we're going, and this is going to lead to hell, or this is just a little blip in the system, and conservatives will regain their rationality.
I'm going to give you last word, and I'm going to do a lightning round.
I think it's not clear what we mean by the right.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It was poorly worded. I'm sorry. Okay. There's
intellectual
life
humility.
In the universe. There's non-terrestrial, non-human life in the universe. Move.
Oh, well, very likely. I don't know 100%. But
Well,
yeah,
Oh.
I'm a little surprised.
I'll go agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is
Given I'm the aliens guy.
there is intelligent life in the universe. Move.
Well, yeah, that I know slightly agree with. But the universe is probably teeming with life that's bacterial grade or pretty low.
Yeah.
The chance of getting all the steps up to us pretty slim.
Like
so-
the great filter.
Yeah, the great filter. There's a bunch of filters. So, but the numbers are big, so they're probably out there somewhere.
Okay. There is spacefaring life in the universe. Move.
Yeah, I'll just to the right of
No.
I'll just stay where I am.
Okay.
I think that's also possible, but just narrowing down the numbers.
Okay. The United States government,
This is good.
some branch, something in the United States, black ops.
Yeah, this is always headed towards aliens. All those lead to aliens.
They're out there on that island.
The United States government, at some faction or branch or black off books or something, is in possession of alien technology. Move.
I'm gonna go all the way over to here.
This is interesting.
Yeah, not impossible, but
I'm actually quite surprised,
well, I'll change.
given that I've listened to like 4 of your podcasts.
No,
There's not a way on the-
I'm usually over here.
Yeah,
I'd be neutral on this. I have no idea.
But
There's
because
so many
Michael
of your-
says he
yeah.
knows somebody.
Gravity, I'm pulling him.
Yeah.
yeah.
Michael says he knows somebody, so and I
I'm
trust.
neutral, though.
Yeah.
But he's
Okay.
neutral.
Yeah. I guess. All right. Who did you talk to? And show us where does he live? Let's go interview him. The guy who saw the alien.
Do you think, as a reporter, do you think I'm going to reveal my sources?
But we're all friends. You trust him. You know he's
yes,
not bullshitting
yes,
us.
that's right. Yeah. Well, so my thought is, he could be completely telling the truth. The guy that he's talking to thinks he's telling the truth. He
Yeah.
saw something he could not identify. It looked off-world to him. That could be all true, and it still just be some Black Ops DARPA project that he didn't know about.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Michael is not claiming this, but let's say he said this guy took me to the Area 51 or whatever and showed me, he's like, holy shit. If he said that right now, what line would you be on?
Well, if it's so this is kind of subjective. If it's Bob Lazar, I'm not moving.
Right.
But if it's Michael Schellenberger, okay, I'll move one.
You
Just
move
because-
one.
Yeah.
Well,
Because that's not enough to tip over.
because it could be some high-tech secret stuff
yeah,
that's
So
from
here's-
the Chinese. Or
So
whatever.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
This is just generally in regards to epistemology. Where the information comes from and who brings the information matters, even if you can't judge it. And this is not an appeal to authority, but it's just the way knowledge works, is the way I put it. Right? It's just the way that knowledge works. So, like with Christianity and conversion, if somebody you trust tells you a bunch of stuff about Christianity and you come to believe it, you're pretty justified in doing so. It would be very unfair to say you're irrational in your belief. So if you know someone who is an expert on a subject and they tell you X, Y, and Z, and you say, cool, like I don't know much about this, but I'm going to take your word. I know you. I know you're not a liar. I know that, we can generally trust you and stuff like that unless something weird's happened. You're pretty good to go. Relationships matter is what I'm saying. The people you spend time with and hang out with and trust and know matters. And so I would just say this in regards to Christians who are doing evangelism and apologetics. Get to know people. Let people get to know you. Be a trustworthy individual in front of people. Your character matters. How you live as a Christian matters as to what you say about Christianity. And also, obviously, learn and grow in your intellect, obviously.
So I'm a little surprised that you're on the neutral, given that you've talked to people. We only have one more minute. I'm a little surprised that you're on the neutral, given that you've talked to people who have, and you said this on Michael's podcast.
Yeah.
It's not that you talk to people who know a guy who knows a guy.
Right.
It's like you've talked to people who have seen it and been there.
Yes.
That's the difference. So why would that not move you to the slightly agree or even agree?
Well, not that, but I think that the people I interviewed, I'm 90% confident that they were telling the truth. So I think there's two potential
Pretty
explanations.
interesting.
One is that they are disinformation actors, and that they were themselves fooled and to fool others. And then the other is folkloric contagion, which is a form of social contagion, which is just telling stories.
I guess it would depend who it is. I mean, I've seen enough interviews with David Grush now.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like an agent of disinformation. He doesn't seem confused. I think he's
Very
telling
sincere.
yeah, totally. And I'm sure the people he talked to believed what they told him. But again, that's an extraordinary claim. We have been visited. We got to have more than just the word of, no matter how reliable. Like
Awesome.
you said, my best friend. But I just need to see it.
Secondhand too.
Yeah. All right.
It's
Let me
secondhand, too.
let me just wrap. We got to go. I just want to say. So I think this is a good example. We touched on some things. We have pretty.
Man, I love what he's about to say. I love what Peter Boosian says here. And I'm going to reemphasize this channel as an apologetics channel, and this ministry is all about this.
different beliefs about things, and we're all buddies.
Yep.
Right? I mean, different religious beliefs,
Yeah.
maybe metaphysical. So what I see in this time of acrimony, especially for young people, is people have to, their beliefs have to comport totally. Oh,
Yep.
if you're a little deviant, I can't be friends with you. Like, why not? I mean, if anything, that makes the conversations more interesting, I would think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was it your book? Was it your book that you quoted Jefferson? Let friends be
Yeah,
wrong.
that's right. Yeah, that's my favorite line in the
Yeah,
book.
let friends be wrong. Now, of course, your friends don't think they're wrong.
Yeah, right.
So it has to be reciprocal. They have to
Right.
let you be wrong.
Yeah, right, cool.
It has to go both ways.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, folks. So, again, have intellectual humility. Really strive after knowing and following the truth where it may lead. Fall into conversations. Get into conversations with people you disagree with. And I would say people you disagree with strongly. And your life generally will be good. Trust me. And we are back.